Thank you for joining us at Samsung HVAC. Today, we will be discussing brazing. We are going to show you in this video what the effects are of brazing with nitrogen and without flowing nitrogen. As you can see, we have our nitrogen tank currently hooked up to a nitrogen flow regulator. This is going to be the main regulator we're using. If you'll notice, we have our PSI roughly set to around 45 or 50 PSI. However, that is not what you actually want to braze at. This flow regulator is going to drop that pressure down to a workable pressure that we can actually braze with. Otherwise, we're going to allow too much nitrogen through the system, and that's going to be wasteful for the nitrogen, but it's also going to make it more difficult to braze. So when using any type of nitrogen flow, you want to make sure you're roughly running about 2 to 3 PSI through the lines during the brazing process. And this device will help us do that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the device. This particular one has both a purge setting, and as you can see, the glove that we currently have on the end of the line, this is here for demonstration purposes, is slightly inflated. That means we are displacing the oxygen now in the lines, and I can maneuver this down to the braze setting. We have a small hole cut in the end of one of the fingers that will allow the nitrogen to escape during the brazing process, so we're not creating too much back pressure. Now we'll turn on our torch. And you want to try to get your torch to a neutral flame. Now we have the nitrogen flowing through the line, and we are going to begin the brazing process. Now we're going to braze both the joints on this particular 90. Now it's important to allow the nitrogen to flow for a brief few moments while the pipe cools off, because the pipe temperature is still so extremely high. While the pipe cools off, the nitrogen is flowing, and we will begin to see the outer carbon flake begin to actually come off of the pipe. As you can see, it's beginning to ripple and break apart. If we were not flowing nitrogen, we'd see the same effect on the inside of the pipe. So we'll give it just a few minutes, continue letting the nitrogen flow. And as you have a larger pipe, more heat is on the pipe and it's going to get hotter. So you may want to let this flow for just a little bit longer. But as you can see, the carbon's starting to flake. So the pipe has cooled down enough that we can probably go ahead and start turning the nitrogen off and also cool down the joint. Now while this finishes cooling off, we're going to go ahead and braze another line without nitrogen flow here. Now I'm going to run this torch just a little hotter, just to show even if you're brazing faster, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to have carbon inside your line. Now we'll just allow both joints to cool, and we'll cool them off with our wet rags. As you can see, all that carbon coming off. This would also form inside your pipe if we weren't flowing nitrogen. Now what we're going to do is we're going to allow these pipes to cool off completely, and then we'll come back and we're going to cut them apart so you can see the inside. Welcome back. So now we have both of our fittings, as you can see, fully brazed. And what we're going to do is we're just going to try to cut them apart and take a look at the inside. So we're going to start with this one. As you can see, we're going to make sure this paper is nice and clean. You can get any of the carbon off the outside. But if you take a look inside the pipe, you can see that there's no major carbon buildup whatsoever inside those lines. Now let's cut open the other one and see if we can see any kind of difference. And if you'll remember, while I was brazing this one, I turned the torch up, got it a little hotter, and went a little faster in my welding. That way we could avoid the possibility of creating a lot of carbon on the inside of the pipe. Now, before I dump this out, take a look at the inside of that copper pipe. Can you see all the carbon? Now I'm going to clean off our piece of paper again. Now this is on the inside, so I'm going to be very delicate and leave it there, but I'm going to try to clean off the outside as it fell. As you can see, all the carbon coming off of that pipe, if you'll take a look at the inside of the pipe there, all that carbon. Now let's compare this to the one we did with nitrogen. Major difference. This carbon will end up washing into your compressors, your strainers, or somewhere where it's going to create a restriction or a potential clog, like an electronic expansion valve. When you braze, we want to make sure we're flowing nitrogen to avoid having carbon like this inside our copper lines. Thank you so much for watching this segment with Samsung HVAC on how to braze with nitrogen.
For service manuals and other documentation, please visit our website at samsunghvac.com or use our Samsung HVAC mobile app to download any technical documentation. Thank you.